Eileen, if you could start.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say start recording. Thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. This is the Tuesday, March 18th, 2022 regular meeting of the Flemington Borough Planning Board. This virtual meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Both adequate and electronic notice of this virtual meeting has been provided by way of publication in the Hunterdon County Democrat and Courier News newspapers on or about January 19th, 2022. In addition, notice of the meeting was posted on the door of the Borough of Flemington Municipal Building located at 38 Park Avenue, and any handicapped accessible entrances there too, posted on the municipal website, provided to the municipal clerk and distributed to all persons, if any, requesting copies of the same. This meeting is being recorded with both video and audio and may be rebroadcast. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. I ask everyone please to rise as you are able for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I see that what I believe to be Caitlin in the attendees, so I'm going to promote. I'm assuming Flemington Borough is her. And I don't see Trent. So that's why I was just pausing there. If we can now, call the roll, please.
Mayor Driver? Here. Ms. Giles McCormick?
Caitlin, you're muted.
Wave your hand.
Just Caitlin's here. Just
I'm
wait.
here. Sorry. Coming in as an attending.
We are not going to miss that. That's for sure.
Mr. Campion?
Here.
Mr. Dasha?
Here.
Mrs. Engelhardt?
Here.
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Budney?
Yeah.
Ms. Giffen?
Here.
Ms. Weitzman?
Here.
Mr. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Parker?
Muted.
He's here.
He is
waving.
here.
He's here. Yes.
We do not see Mr. Levitt yet.
Not yet. No.
Ms. Kaczynski?
Here.
Mr. Clerico?
Here.
Ms. McManus?
Here.
Mr. Troutman?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item one, as always on our agenda, is a period for public comments. Before I ask for members of the public, if they have anything they want to add that is not an agenda item in front of the board this evening, if they want to speak, Eileen, I know we received one email that you're going to read into the record that I know about. Were there any other emails or calls or hard copies?
No.
Okay, so there was one email received. If you could read the to, the from, the date and all that stuff so that's into the record, and then we'll start the clock, and assuming you can read it all within 3 minutes. If not, we'll cut it off.
Okay.
But I don't think it'll be a problem. So
It's titled, it was an email, Concerned Citizen from Van Holten, Jenna Van Holten at Tufts EDU. This was sent Sunday, February 13th, 2022 at 4:48 p.m. to eparks@historicflemington.com, which is my email. The body of the text says, hello, my name is Jenna Van Holten. I've been a resident in Flemington for over 20 years. Within that time, I have watched the landscape of Flemington change, not only the physical landscape, but the social and political landscape as well. The town is heavily fueled by nepotism and private interest, as it has become impossible for the town to hide. We have Jack Cuss, a man who thinks this town is his playground, creating overpriced apartment buildings that will never fill and actively contaminating local water resources. Now we have Hoboken Brownstone, a redevelopment firm, who has nothing but monetary interest in this project. I think we must all remember that this is Flemington, not Hoboken or Somerville. We don't have a running train line, so we obviously don't have the same population density or foot travel as Hoboken or Somerville. That being said, I'm worried the values of the redevelopers are completely misaligned with what I think you as a municipality's values should be to ensure your constituents their health, safety, and welfare, not to jeopardize it. with more flooding because of a measly retention basin. I think this is being rushed, and Flemington has the opportunity and the capacity to rethink town redevelopment efforts, more intentionality. What is the City Hall going to do for its residents? Will you be holding free workshops, educational opportunities? People want places to gather, places to relax, places to harness conviviality, not turn half of Flemington into private property that can't be enjoyed by the majority, physically shrinking the community. There is currently a skate park being proposed by residents. I suggest we allocate our capacity towards action items like that instead of ones that will utilize more resources than we can afford to waste. The town is trying too hard to please this hypothetical demographic you think live in Flemington. But while that's going on, the town is completely ignoring the actual residents of the town. I propose the town of Flemington scrutinizes the anticipated redevelopment plans that have been proposed by private developers. Instead of throwing money at something that will only exacerbate the problem, I propose the board takes time to stop and think about their intentionality behind the few redevelopment projects of Flemington, in parentheses, Liberty Village, and the Union Hotel, in parentheses. Lastly, I'm curious as to why and how the town decided on Hoboken Brownstone. What criteria did you use as a municipality? Was a gift of new city hall building enough of an incentive to hire them, or was there another reason? Sincerely, Jenna Van Holten, she, they, MS candidate, environmental policy and planning, Tufts University Graduate School of Arts and Science.
Eileen, I just want to ask, there was no actual address that was provided by the writer, is that correct?
That is correct, just her email address, which is JENN.VAN_HOLTEN@tufts.edu.
Thank you.
All right, if there are members of the public who wish to speak under public comments, please click on the raise hand icon either at the bottom or top of your screen. If you're on the phone, it's *9, but I don't think anyone there is on the phone. Okay, seeing none, Kara, please go ahead.
Really quickly, I'm sorry, we haven't done this in a while because we haven't had any new matters on the agenda. But before we start the agenda, there are some new matters on it this time. So I just want to ask everyone on the board if they feel that they have any personal or pecuniary direct or indirect interest that may impair their ability to review and make decisions with regard to matters on the agenda tonight, or otherwise render unbiased determinations with regard to the same. Think we're okay?
Thank you, Kara. So item 2 on the agenda is mayor comments. Mayor Driver, please.
So I'd like to see a policy that if people don't include addresses, we don't read stuff into the record, because I think that address as a point of record is important. When somebody speaks in public, we ask them for that. Just FYI, just my 2 cents. The other thing, and she sent that letter to members of council as well. So, and we designated a redeveloper for the Nilkanth property at the last council meeting. That would be Cardinal Capital Management. They're out of Madison, Wisconsin. They have submitted a very rough concept plan. I think it should be up on the borough website. And that's it. It's a cool plan. It's just over 100 units. It does include, if they can find an operator, an in-town grocery store at that end of town. And hopefully it'll all come together and come to fruition. These folks have been around for a few years. It took quite a while to get here because there were 2 counter easements on the property, and while there's no tracks there, as you all know, there were tracks there at one point in the past, and those tracks are long gone, but the easements were never taken care of. So finally, after a lot of back and forth and high-level interventions, and calling in a lot of favors from a lot of folks that Conrail released those easements, so those folks are ready to move ahead. And it's a nice project. It's got a little playground or gathering area in the middle of it that will be open to the public, and under podium parking and underground parking below. So again, it's another property in the borough that's also highly contaminated. And so that will get all cleaned up, and that's a very good thing for the borough as well as for the groundwater in Flemington. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor. Council.
Jeff, did you see that Trent came in?
I
I
did.
saw him around 7:10.
Actually, I answered him at 7:05, if you want to be.
Got it,
precise.
there you go.
While Eileen was reading the note and she couldn't do it, so I took care of it at 7:05. We can round to that. So
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
no problem. Caitlin, please.
Sure. The only thing I have is that the Historic Preservation Commission is hoping to present next at the next planning board meeting to talk about the process for getting established from the Historic Preservation Office as a certified local government. And I know there's been some turnover on the planning board, but they did come last year to get the planning board's opinions about that process and what needs to happen next and how it would impact the planning board. Want to try to be as efficient as possible with that. And just a quick refresh before the Historic Preservation Commission goes in front of the council to ask for their blessing as well. It is a status that offers some consistency and structure that I think would be really appreciated on the Historic Preservation Commission, and would also open us up for additional funds and things like that. So look forward to that. Hopefully next meeting, and that's all I got.
I want to just, I know, Caitlin, you had sent an email to me about this, and I tentatively said it was okay for the 22nd. I realized after you started speaking, and I want Kara to weigh in. The reason why we have this discussion was because an ordinance was introduced on first reading at council. Obviously, it came to planning board for this was back months ago, came to planning board for our discussion because it's dealing with land development ordinance. And then council decided to act on its own behalf, as well as hopefully some of the stuff that we had raised as issues. There's no issue with HPC coming to us at a public meeting before there's a draft ordinance? Is that because this is not the order of steps that we did last time. I want to make sure process is correct.
So if I'm understanding correctly, and I have this happening in a couple of my other towns as well. They're looking for the planning board to indicate whether or not they would support the HPC taking some action that may further their ability to be designated as a certified local government.
Let me say a little bit better. It's more of that we had raised a number of substantive concerns with the first reading of the ordinance. It sounds as if they've done some of the homework and have answers to some of those questions that we raised. But right now, there is no ordinance in front of council. Yes.
You know what, if I could ask for Caitlin to just kind of fill me in a little bit on exactly what the HPC is looking to do, take a look at the prior ordinance and what our comments were versus the final adopted ordinance, just so I can kind of get a gauge. This seems to be outside of what we originally did, and seems like we can entertain the HPC from what I'm understanding and what I'm hearing. But let me ask a couple other questions, take a look at the ordinance, and then I can better educate everybody on that.
All right, so this might appear on our agenda for the next meeting. It might not, depending on that offline conversation. So we don't necessarily need to spend any more time here on it, but.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks,
All right.
Caitlin. I'll reach out.
Jeff, very quickly, I'm just a little concerned. I think one of the things that perhaps Caitlin and Kara and can kind of give us information is how long they estimate the presentation is, because we have kept you
15
on the
minutes.
agenda.
I'm not giving them more than 15 minutes.
And that's my point, is that I want them to be aware there's a very tight timeline. There's not gonna be much time for you on the 22nd. So please keep that in mind. If you think you need more, you may need to push it.
I
All
don't
right.
think I don't think the substantive items will take long at all. I'm more concerned about the turnover and making sure everybody's understanding the process, but I think we can do that ahead of time, honestly. We can spend time with those couple people who maybe aren't up to date, pull them up to date, and the update itself will be very quick.
Okay, because I am very clear, 15 minutes, no more, because we've got something on the agenda. So, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item, item 4 is HPC comments. There was one HPC resolution that did get circulated last week by Eileen. It was an approval. I don't think there was anything else there. I don't think there's any other HPC issues. And I don't see the chair out in the attendee panel. So we'll move on from there. Item 5 on the agenda is approval of minutes from the February 8th, 2022 meeting. Those were previously circulated by email. Can I get a motion and a second on the minutes?
So move, Cook.
Engelhardt seconds.
Thank you. Any further discussion or clarification on the minutes? Eileen, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Engelhardt,
Yes.
Mayor Driver,
Abstain.
Ms. Gauss McCormick,
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Abstain.
Mr. Dashna,
Yes.
Mr. Budney,
Yes.
Ms. Giffen,
Yes.
and Ms. Weitzman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 6 on our agenda this evening. For some of our newer members of the board, you may not have seen something called informal discussion before. I will just so everybody understands what we're doing here. We allow an applicant where the planning board has jurisdiction, not when it's a zoning board matter, but when it's planning board jurisdiction, to schedule a early conversation with our board and professionals, usually 15 minutes, just to get some initial feedback from some concept plans, things that we would be looking for in a submission. This is not a formal review. This is more of information gathering. And we have found it to be very helpful for applicants to utilize this mechanism to get some initial feedback, have our board and professionals point out some any potential red flags of things that they might want to just be cognizant of, so that when they do submit a formal application, they tend to go a whole lot more efficiently, having had that initial conversation. So Kara, go ahead.
Yeah, just really quickly, and I wanted to let the board know, I did confirm that there will be no requests for D variances, because that's the threshold as to whether or not the board can review this in either capacity. So the use is permitted. There's no other D variances for floor area ratio or height that the applicant will be requesting. So the board has the ability to review this on an informal basis.
Okay, so I see Skyler Bird is in the attendee panel, and I'm going to promote them to be able to speak. The folks who also are attendees, I don't know who else is appearing here. If you could just click on raise hand so I know who to make panelist, that would be helpful. Okay, Gary O'Connor, got you there. Great. All right. So not sure who's going to speak first or who's going to chat, but I am going to allow panelists to share screen because I have a feeling we're going to be sharing something here. So I don't know if Skyler or Gary, whoever wants to speak first and introduce what we're talking about, that'd be great.
I guess I'll speak first, if that's okay, Gary. I think you're on mute, any case, but thank you everyone for hearing us tonight. It's nice to see you all. My name is Skyler. I'm excited to talk a little bit about our project proposal and kind of show you what we've been working on for the last, couple of years now, actually. So I do have a couple of slides I was hoping to share, if that's possible. I can share my screen and kind of take you through what we're looking at. It's all the same material that you folks have that we submitted, just kind of broken up a little bit so you can follow my train of thought a little bit better. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll pull this up. I think that's right. Yeah. Okay. So first, I guess I just wanted to tell you all a little bit about our project. Our project's about, rejuvenating the now defunct auto service station at 144 Main Street that you all probably know as the filling station, into a new breakfast and lunch restaurant called Millies. Our plan is to utilize the existing building for the majority of the restaurant's dining room, but we will need to expand with an addition along the east and north sides of the building, which will house our kitchen, service areas, storage, and also some outdoor seating. So that's kind of what we're proposing here. Really the goals of my discussion, or the goals of this discussion, at least I think from myself and Gary's point of view tonight, would be to, number one, discuss the change of use from service station to restaurant. Number two, ensure that our project adheres to the required building setbacks for the downtown business district. Number three, demonstrate that our proposal doesn't increase the property's impervious coverage from what it is currently. And number four, confirm that our seating plan aligns with the current parking ordinances for Flemington. So I guess the first thing would be that change of use. So as I know the borough attorney did mention, it looks to me that this use restaurant is allowed in the downtown business district, number 16 there. So it didn't seem like that would be an issue. Also looking at our lot here, if you look at the site plan, which you should all have a copy of, it looks to us as though we can comply with all of the lot size requirements for the downtown business district. So this would be a conforming lot. The next thing that we looked at were the setbacks for the district. Our property is a little bit unusual in the sense that it's a corner lot. These corner lots, from my interpretation, I'm sorry, I was jumping ahead here. From my interpretation of the zoning, we would have two front yard setbacks for this lot and two side yard setbacks. You can see down the bottom here that a lot having two adjacent sides on intersecting roads will have a building setback from each street not less than the required front yard. I did have a chance to sit down and talk to Jeff Klein about this, and he seemed to agree with that interpretation of this. So coming to the site plan, you can see here, I just highlighted it in red for you, but you'll have it as a dashed line on your copy of the site plan. We're showing the front yard setback for the building at that 25-foot mark. However, it does also talk about reducing the depth of that front yard to the average of the buildings on either side of our property. We weren't 100% sure how to interpret that because our property is on a corner, so it doesn't have a building on either side. So we have an option of either taking this nice building on the left here, which is, if you're familiar with it, is at a zero yard setback. It's literally directly on the property line, or this other building on the right, which has a 23-foot setback. And then we have finally this building over on this side here on the William Street side, which is a 6-foot setback. So basically either way, if we took the average of either of those two, either of these three buildings, it looks like it would kind of the greatest number we would get is 14.5 feet, which is what we're showing on that orange line there. So it looks in terms of front yard setbacks like we're able to meet all of the requirements. And obviously in terms of side yards, having a 0-foot side yard setback, this addition wouldn't impact that at all. So I don't want to charge too far ahead in case anyone has any questions too. If anyone would like to chime in, feel free. Otherwise, I'll keep on going and you can save it all up for the end.
Well, before you jump forward, I want
Sure.
to ask if Beth McManus, our planner, could weigh in about the two questions about uses and setbacks. Because before we move forward on this, I mean, just if you wouldn't mind, Beth, just to make sure that there's not something here you want to bring up right now.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So one, I agree, this is a permitted use, so we can continue the conversation. No concerns about that. I do agree with the interpretation of, I guess, Jeff Klein, and then as presented today with the side yards and the rear yards. I haven't verified the numbers in the lot configuration table, the zoning computations table, but I agree that they indicate that there's no change. And as an existing use, these are conforming, but as an existing use, I have an existing lot I have a little bit less concern about any existing nonconformities, but nonetheless, it's not something we need to worry about here because these are compliant lot configurations.
Great. Okay, so yeah, maybe that solves that there. We can move forward, I think.
Okay, great. Thank you. So next thing I wanted to talk about, just because obviously it's listed on those computations there, is lot coverage. I mean, obviously we were looking at basically a giant parking lot here. So we're nearly at 100% impervious coverage. I think our existing coverage is 89% on the lot. So while we're expanding the building, you know, we're not expanding the paved area because we're actually building over paved area. One thing we would like to do is include a planting strip on the left side of the building, which I think would just kind of bring a little bit of, you know, nice color to what's otherwise just a lot. And, you know, one of the other thought process with the design was to try and preserve this strip on the right-hand side because we've got a lot of trees on that right-hand side. I can't promise we'll necessarily be able to retain 100% of those, but the goal was to maintain as many of those as we possibly can because it's a nice, nice bit of tree coverage, makes the building look better, and obviously provides a little bit of barrier for the neighbor there as well.
Bob, you've got your hand up. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I just want to just point out something to Beth's point. I didn't check any of the coverages or calculations, but I believe the lot area they're quoting here is the gross lot area based on the dimensions goes out into the street. I think that the actual lot area, the shaded section, what you're showing in here within the pavement is probably a smaller number. Again, whether it complies or doesn't comply or whether that's an issue or not, I'm just pointing it out that a lot of areas, it does not include the street right away.
Yeah, I don't believe that number was included, but that might be a good question to throw over to Gary. Actually, Gary, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, just if you take the dimensions which go out to the center of the street and multiply the two dimensions, you essentially get 16,500 and change square feet. So I'm kind of guessing it does, but Gary can respond to that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to let Gary respond to that one. Gary, are you with us? Muted?
Yes, I am just double checking that because normally we only take it from the right of way line as it should be.
While you double check that, shall I keep on moving and then we can
Yeah,
circle
so
back
the-
around to that one?
We'll swing back to that, but I do see there's
11,000 and change. If we had taken it to the center line of the street, it would be 16,000 and change. So we have taken it from the right of way line.
Oh, okay.
good. Todd, you got a hand up. I'll let
Yeah, it's a question for Bob. Bob, even though they are going to have a less impervious coverage than existing, won't the ordinance, they're gonna disrupt more than 20% of this, it looks like more than 20% of this property. Doesn't that trigger a automatic reduction in impervious coverage?
I want to come back to stormwater. Can we
Okay.
hold off on that because it's gonna, I think we'll, but I think it's gonna require more of a substantial conversation. I'd rather them get through the
Okay.
But I think you're right. Is
Yeah.
that there's a question.
I think, from an informal perspective, they're wanting at least some direction from us, but if we get it under stormwater, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep on rolling and then we'll come back to that one. Sound good? Okay. All right, so next slide for me is about parking. So our use restaurant, typically we'd be one parking spot for 3 seats. I know that the planning board did create an amendment in looks like June 28th, 2021 for the DB district, stating that off-street parking shall not be required for uses occupying existing floor area. So based on that interpretation, we are intending to keep all of our dining, or the vast majority of our dining, not all of it actually, in the area of the existing garage. So we do have 52 seats, which you can see overlay nicely into that existing garage building that we are retaining. We do also have some patio seating, which, based on my understanding of the chart here on table 26.2, does not require additional parking. And then we do also have 7 counter seats here for kind of our coffee counter over here, which we are providing parking for. One of my biggest goals with this site was trying to figure out how we could do what we needed to do and still maintain the maximum amount of parking on the site that we could. Although I don't perceive Flemington to have a parking problem, it's one of the things amongst many other things I like about the town, it's a great thing to be able to get a place to park. I think it's important for our business, aside from anything else, to be able to provide as many parking spaces as we can. Based on the site plan and kind of turning radiuses and things that we looked at, we are able to provide 7 parking spots on the site. It looks like if we're going with this interpretation that we are required to provide parking for these 7 seats, we would need 2.33 or 3 parking spaces. We're providing 7 here, so that would almost give us a net gain. So that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of parking there. And that was really all I had to present to you all today.
All right, so before I want to talk about the parking real fast. Now go back to the next one because it's a nicer picture. If Jay maybe or Beth, is this a correct understanding of the updated parking calculation? Because this ordinance has only been in effect for about 6 months.
So I don't recall the outdoor parking exemption, and I'm actually looking for it right now in reference to what Mr. Byrd has just testified or stated. I don't recall that being an exemption. It may well be, but if you give me one moment, I'll confirm it.
Okay, but the idea, but the one thing I do, while you're looking that up, the fact that they're putting 52.
Oh, yeah, the existing floor area.
There's no parking because of the updated ordinance. There's no parking generated from that. There's clearly the 7 counter seats in the new structure, and then you're looking up this question of the 16 that are outside.
Yeah, that's correct. I do verify that the existing floor area within the DB district for certain uses, including restaurants, do not generate a parking demand or a parking requirement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jay, please, good.
I guess at this time, I would just comment, it would be helpful during the application to hear when they expect to experience their peak parking demand and what they think is available around the site to handle the 17 spaces that those 52 seats are going to generate in demand. Typically in a CBD, that's not an issue, but it's good to hear where those would be and at those times.
Well, we don't have, but I don't think they have to provide parking as part of the ordinance, though.
Right. I agree with that. That's a typical CBD situation, but I just think in terms of reality, that 52 seats, 17 cars have to park somewhere. It'd be nice to know how are the streets looking at their peak times. Not as a requirement to provide parking, but just as a commentary on what does the parking situation look like around the site.
And can I add that the commentary may include an estimate of customers that may be not arriving by car, but another mode of transportation, such as their feet or bike.
So, but are you Jay, are you looking for that as just from a discussion perspective? Because our ordinances don't require that. So they'd be going above and beyond what our ordinances. I mean, if somebody puts a restaurant in, we don't require a restaurant to say, where do we think people are going to park? The council took that ordinance away. So, I mean, it's a moot point, isn't it? I mean, it's good, nice to know, but
that's what I was thinking, Todd. Yeah. That's where my head is. I mean, obviously, maybe we can stop sharing because maybe it'll be a little easier for me to see everybody who's here.
I think Jay's point is that it's just, I think it would help their application, not hinder it by addressing that.
Beth, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I just wanted to verify. So yes, the existing floor area, as I said, does not generate parking calculation. And also I finally found the outdoor dining exemption in the obvious location, which I had skipped over, which is in the parking table. It simply states outdoor dining, no parking, no additional parking shall be required.
Okay, so their interpretation is that what is in concept here of 52 in the existing structure, 16 outdoor and 7 at the counter in the new addition. The only seats that would generate the 1 per 3 are the 7 at the counter.
Correct.
So their provision and concept of 7 spots certainly is more than enough.
Yeah, and the restaurant requires 1 parking space per 3 seats. So at the 7 counter spaces, they're required a little over 2 parking spaces. I think they have
7.
7 shown.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. All right. Let's I want to hear from our professionals, and I do know that there is this question about impervious and stormwater and all that stuff. So maybe Bob, you can talk to those things, because I know that there's some substantial.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, they're not gonna, our stormwater regulations themselves and the state regulations require to be a major project, to be subject to those regulations, you have to disturb more than an acre of land. This application certainly does not. You have to add more than a 1/4 acre of additional impervious coverage. This application doesn't. We do have another provision of the ordinance, though, under 2637, which talks about impervious coverage. And it talks about, it provides some stormwater guidance for developments that disturb more than 2,000 square feet or add more than 200 square feet of additional impervious coverage. From what I understood on the testimony, this application is actually reduce impervious coverage. So this 200 wouldn't be a trigger mechanism, but they are going to disturb more than 2,000. So that would be a triggering mechanism under that particular provision. And what that essentially says is that you knock 20% off your maximum allowable impervious coverage unless you're going to enhance a site with certain stormwater features which are listed in the ordinance. So you have a situation where you're either developing a site that has, in this particular case, 55% impervious coverage, or you provide some on-site stormwater improvements in the way of what the guidelines of the ordinance, or you need relief from one or the other.
So I want to make sure that they walk away with what they need. So that's the section of the ordinance that they're going to have to at least address somehow in the application.
What, 2637?
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess if I can.
On the setback issue, again, if the definition here is to line up with adjoining buildings, and that's the direction. If it is, excuse me, doing a measurement of setback, it would be measured from what they call the street line. The street line is not necessarily the existing right-of-way line. It's whatever right-of-way is defined in the master plan. I think typically the minimum streets are 50-foot right-of-way. So normally it would be, if you're measuring from the center of the street, normally it'd be another 25 feet which would add. I think
Which is, that's
setback is 25 from the street line. The street line on Main Street would essentially be where the existing right-of-way line is. The street line on William Street, because it's only a 33-foot right-of-way, would be back a little further. But again, if there's an alternate way of defining minimum front yard by adjoining buildings, then that would negate that particular issue.
right. And since the building is facing Main Street, I would imagine that the Main Street setback question is more substantial than, even though it is 2 front yards and 2 side yards because it's a corner, but I think the Main Street setback is the more important one, because that's how the building is presenting to and in terms of, one building is at 0 and the other one's at, and I think that's fine.
And they're meeting that, so.
Yeah, they're meeting that. Okay.
They may or may not need variance relief on the William Street side.
Okay. We want to also give you a chance for if you've got other questions that you want to ask on stuff. So Skyler or Gary, if there are questions that you have.
It's not really a question, just speaking to stormwater. I'm interested in kind of investigate what our options are. One thing that I've been talking with Gary about is we do have an extremely high water table on the property. Like, I've been a little bit surprised, as you know, we had some tanks taken out, also had a hydraulic jack removed from in the garage, and it was just amazing how quickly those excavations filled up with water. You go down about 3 feet and, and there's water there, which is probably a big part of the reason why they had as many issues as they did with groundwater contamination on the site years ago. So in terms of dry wells and things like that, I'm not really sure what our options are there, but we'll have to explore what those options are. I certainly have no issue with adding additional impervious to the site in the sense that, it's nice. I love grass, but one of the issues is, although we could probably add a little bit more in the top left corner of the site plan, the more we add, the more we're kind of taking away from parking area. So it's like one of those types of things of what's more important. Do we provide the parking or do we provide the greenery,
Well, in that regard, I think you may want to look at reversing your layout and enter from William Street. Basically change the angle of your 60-degree parking. I think you might end up getting one more parking space. Right now you're showing 6 parking spaces. I heard 7 mentioned before, but I'm seeing 6 on the plan. I think your first parking space, the way it's currently laid out, coming in from Main Street, that'd be a very difficult space to make that turn and get into. It's like almost doing a 180 degrees, not quite 180 degrees, but you're coming around on yourself. I think if he came in the other way, you'd be lined up a little bit better. And I'll defer to Jay, but I personally think that having exiting movements on Main Street are probably better than having entering movements, just for the functioning of the street. So you may want to consider that. I also think you with the 60-degree parking, I think if you look at the standard, you probably, again, you have to design this, but I believe you could pull that front edge back from the right of way, and you probably could get some sort of a grass area in there. And that may be a component of your stormwater system, maybe. You may want to look at what Lee Roth had to end up doing on his application. He had similar issues to deal with a high groundwater table too. So he ended up just collecting roof water and storing it in shallow subsurface pipes. Again, I don't know if you have any storm drains here on the street to tie into. I don't know that you do or you don't. So whatever you discharge here probably is going to be a gutter line discharge if there is no stormwater. So you have to look at the specifics of the site and see what's what your options are.
Mayor, you got your hand up, please.
Yeah, I do. Would a green roof help alleviate any of that? Flat roof.
I have to look at the ordinance, what the standards. I would tend to think it probably would, but
That's all.
Yeah, good. The other thing, Skyler, is that, once you're at the point of submission, and certainly having a technical review with our board's professionals is a good idea. And maybe you can, without it having to be at a noticed meeting, just before you get there, have that conversation with your architect and engineer, with Bob Clerico and Beth McManus, and to kind of figure out what options might make sense based on some other stuff that we've done here in town. So, we want to work with you here to make this as straightforward as possible. So
that'd be helpful for sure.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Beth and then Susan. Go ahead.
So real quick, first, I just want to say I really welcome an informal. I'm happy to sit down and chat through some of these ideas. And some of the ideas that Bob Clerico just laid out about reversing the direction of the entrance and the parking, I think that might be something that could be really helpful to you. So I want to give a boost to that. And also, I wonder, I don't know for certain, but I wonder if we were able to do that. And as Bob mentioned, add some green space along the front, if that might also be an opportunity for a couple of street trees, because that would be a really nice way to make the frontage of your property look a little nicer, and also just add to the streetscape of Main Street. And then as I look at the plan, I'm looking at your dumpster location, or the trash location, and I have just a general concern about the location so proximate to Main Street, given how visible it's going to be in that location. And also it's going to be, now I'm not sure there's a better location in terms of proximity to neighbors, but that's an additional concern. So I'm interested in exploring whether there's an alternative location for that dumpster, perhaps maybe along William Street, or perhaps we need to take special care to make sure it's properly screened so that it really doesn't have an impact on Main Street. Because one of the things I like about this project is you're bringing a bit of an eyesore back to life and are actually being able to use the existing building, and there's a lot of sustainability in there, and also just frankly the architecture you have is a little funky, and so I like it. I also want to highlight the fact that you're in the historic district, so that's also going to play a role in your approval process.
Yep, and we are going to HPC on their next meeting to have a very similar discussion that we're having with you all about other things. So yes, for sure, that's something that came to mind. Also, with regards to dumpster, you know, certainly happy to discuss other locations. Board of Health will require us to have our dumpster fully enclosed anyway by some sort of enclosure, so we're going to have to put I'm assuming probably a high retaining wall in the back and gates on the front or something like that. That location, it's kind of hard to tell, but it's almost built into the bank, so we're going to need to somehow kind of carve a section of that bank out, because there's about a 4.5 foot incline up there to where it goes on to Robert Shore's property. He's got a piece of he's our neighbor there on that side, so I'm hoping
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, you have a loading dock to the to the south of the main building, to the right of it on the plan. And I don't want to advocate for not providing loading on the site, but maybe there's an opportunity to relocate the dumpster in that area and to think of a creative way to do loading on the property rather than having a designated single-use area for it.
And we did want to provide that loading space because right now it's, you know, it's required. It's one of the requirements that I read in the zoning guidelines. With that being said, I mean, with a restaurant use, I don't know, depending on what types of deliveries we're getting, it's probably not necessary for us to provide that space in the same way it would be if we were like, I don't know, a retail store or something that was having people backing up and unloading merchandise, you know.
I would encourage you not to keep the loading there only for the sake of avoiding needing relief from the board, because I'm pretty sure that the dumpster location is going to require relief as well. So it might just be a matter of trading one item of relief for another, and perhaps there's a better way to design the site and increase your likelihood of getting that relief.
Okay, that sounds good.
Susan had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had actually Beth brought up one of my questions, so I'll just expand upon that first. My comment was going to be to encourage some sort of buffering with landscaping along the parking along that main street. That corner in particular is a busy pedestrian corner, especially in the mornings with the kids walking to school, since that's the kind of hours that you guys are going to be keeping. So, and there's residential right across the street. So I think that buffer will, along that front car parking, would just kind of make that transition of a walkable street, improve it a bit, and perhaps help with street trees or your impervious surface requirements. My next question was, are they required to do an EV here?
I think there's a make ready requirement if they even, but I don't, is that only residential?
Yeah, there's a commercial requirement for as well, but I forget exactly what triggers it, whether it's a minimum number of parking spaces.
And that's not an answer we need to, necessarily figure out for them now, but that's something definitely we could, they can look into, we can look into, and the technical review committee can kind of talk to them about, but that's something that was on my mind. My other comment was also screening the garbage. So I appreciate Beth bringing that to their attention. I just wanted to, since this is an informal, the fact that they're on a corner lot is not unusual for us to review. So I know that Skyler mentioned that it is, but in our town, it's not. We deal with that all the time, and we're very comfortable with that. And that being said, not guaranteeing what would happen, but we're very comfortable with working with people that have these corner lots, because you essentially have two front yards. The interpretation that I always encourage for that kind of looking upon your neighbors. I like to use that kind of new urbanist feel where you're aligning the elevations. So that interpretation that you have on that William Street side, aligning that 6-foot setback with the Mr. Shore's property next to you, I think is an excellent interpretation. And I would be in support of that if I were to be reviewing this in a couple weeks in a formal application. And finally, the last comment that I have is regarding the technical review committee in particular. Jeff and I, of course, talk about these things a little ahead of time sometimes. And I'm actually really excited to have the opportunity to do a technical review committee on this project because it is not a D-variance and it's relatively small compared to other projects. It's a perfect opportunity to get a technical review committee in. And essentially for those relatively new on the board, I just want to explain what that is. It essentially allows our professionals and 1 or 2 board members to meet with the applicant ahead of time, kind of iron out all the big bumps. And when they come back for their formal application, a lot of times other board members will raise a question, and the members that were on the technical review committee can say, oh, yeah, we actually talked about that, and this is how we all encourage to handle it. Or the applicant in of itself and themselves have addressed the question ahead of time, and it's just a smoother process for everyone, including the applicant. Jeff, you and I had spoken that you would like to sit on that technical review committee, and I think I'd just love to see one of our newer or younger members, not necessarily young, but newer, sit on that technical review committee as well, only because I'd really like people that haven't experienced that to have that experience, because it's not something we get to do that often, unfortunately. So I just encourage that if you could.
All right. Any other board members with thoughts they want to share?
Just, if we go back to the parking thing real quick. I don't know if I'm missing something because I am one of those newer members of the planning board. That street is a one-way, William. So I'm not sure if they flipped the orientation of the parking, if that would make sense to come in that way. So that's just a
Well,
thought.
if the driveway was on Williams, they could, traffic would turn off of Main onto William and onto the lot. And when they would exit the property, they'd have to turn on William and drive towards Broad, or Spring and then Broad. So it works with the one way. If the concern is that there'd be too much traffic being pushed into the residential neighborhood, it's 7 parking spaces. I don't think or 6 parking spaces or whatever it ends up being. It's not a huge amount of vehicular traffic through there. And given the number of people who cut down William anyway to get to Broad Street on any given Tuesday, I don't think this is going to make, I don't even think it'll be noticeable. But yeah, you're right. There is a one way.
And just to point out, there's an existing curb cut there, and we are eliminating the curb cut on Main Street at the corner.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. We're all for that. Obviously, there's other little things like the curb on Main Street will have to be fully restored. The sidewalk has to be fully restored. Those are all things that are covered under ordinance and our design specs, and obviously would go with any improvement of a site. So
yeah, we recognize that. And
yeah, I'm sorry, Karen. Yeah, Karen, go ahead.
Well, I'm just on your point. Beth's suggestion of reversing the flow would actually help, because the traffic would then enter Main Street when it's exiting this plot rather than going down William. Surely.
Right. Sorry. Yes.
So it would actually
but I want to give
that.
Bob
So
the
it's actually
credit for it.
probably better to go that way, right? Because otherwise everything exiting would have to go back through the residential area.
Right. So
we understand Bob's comment in terms of being able to slide into that 60-degree angled slot. It's an easier drop in, and we'll certainly plug that in. I'm sure you can see that it would work.
Yep. Kara, go ahead.
And just so I understand, the exiting onto Main Street, would that allow for a left and a right-hand turn? Or just a right-hand turn? Or something to think about, something to discuss.
I think that's something that Jay will probably chime in on and give us his opinion as the application goes forward.
I think it should be allowed to be left and right. I think people should be able to go in either direction. And I like this whole idea because, like someone else said, we're not forcing everybody to go to William. The way the spots are angled now, it kind of forces everybody out to William now. They go to Main and they can still get to William, but they can also go up and down Main.
Good. I just want to say, like, personally, I am very excited to see this moving forward. I mean, I love the design that you're proposing. I think it's fantastic use. It calls back to the old filling station idea, the old Highlines garage kind of idea, historic stuff. I love the kind of 50s retro feel to it. I think it's going to be great. And I'm looking forward to missing. And I grabbed my Blue Moose mug. You can't see it because I got a screen, but I have my Blue Moose mug from your old place in New Hope. So definitely looking forward to having a coffee on the counter over there. So once you get going. Anybody
Can we
else?
talk signage? I think signage was in that email they sent, wasn't it?
Well, the facade sign on the building is consistent with Main Street, and and it'll be reviewed as part of the site plan. It doesn't need a special SRC sign review committee. The sign regs are pretty straightforward. Gary, you can see those pretty easily without it being, I didn't see anything in there that was.
I think the only other signage we might want to consider, and we'll just have to kind of take a look, I can take a look at the renderings I produced too, if we are turning off of William, just how evident that is to anybody. You don't want to get in a situation where people are trying to pull out onto Main, but other people are trying to pull in from Main. You know what I mean? Especially if the spaces are facing that direction. Just, we'll have to kind of, I guess, Gary, you and I can consider that and how that would look and flow, just so it makes sense.
Small directional signs are certainly things that we see on many applications. It's not a problem to do that as long as they're, design-wise kind of consistent with the rest of, Main Street and all that other good stuff. So we don't want a big arches or something for Millies or something. There, but,
I think the arches are taken already, but that's
all right. Anybody else? Anybody else on the board?
I think
Brian.
Brian.
I just had, quick. I was looking for the raised hand function, but it's buried down there. So I just had a question. It was brought up a couple times that there was the environmental contamination on the property, and I believe from the past, from the DEP cleanup that was conducted on the property, that there was a groundwater. There are groundwater wells on that property. I believe that they were still monitored, and the long-term, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just natural attenuation until the contaminants eventually dissipate. Could you clarify, I guess, who's actually now that I'm presuming you're going to be looking to purchase the property under your own. They
already purchased.
That's already closed. Who's actually responsible now for maintaining the clearance for the existing monitoring wells that are on there? I'm assuming your plan takes into account where those monitoring wells are, and who's still conducting the sampling.
Yeah, it does take that into account, and that's another kind of fun thing that I dealt with in trying to figure this out for the last couple of years, is how can we position the building to provide maximum parking, not cut into the impervious area, and avoid these 13 little wells that are scattered all over the property.
So we
do have a permit into the DEP to get, I guess it's 10 out of the 13 wells closed. So 10 out of the 13 wells have now come into compliance, which is great news actually, because it's a sign that things are seriously moving in the right direction. Now, how long it's going to take the DEP to actually review that permit that was submitted or permit modification was submitted in October. I contacted them last week and they haven't started reviewing it yet. So there's obviously a little bit of a lag time before that happens. But one of the reasons why we positioned the building in the way that we did is it doesn't actually cover any of the existing wells on site. So if those needed to be, continued to be kept open, we would be able to do that and still access them and sample from them. So
Okay, so the 10 that are in compliance, do you need those removed before you could go to construction on the building, or you said they're all in the clear?
No, they're all clear, so they could be taken out at
Okay.
any point. And by taken out, I mean, they just grout them basically with cement. So they
Yeah.
would just be getting filled in.
They just
They're
abandon them in
not,
place?
yeah, they're not huge wells. They're just a little pipe basically that goes down.
Just make sure that the guys don't pave over the ones that have to stay.
Yeah,
because
I've seen that happen.
That happened to my husband's site, literally.
I've
today.
seen that happen to jobs before too. Yeah, you try to do sampling and yeah, it's under four inches of pavement. So.
All right. Again,
That's it. Thanks.
No,
Sure.
thank you all. We've run a little long for our normal time for an informal, but I think that we gave you hopefully some good guidance as to what you in terms of next steps. Please, if it makes sense for you to have a technical review committee, you've got board members interested in doing it as well as our professionals. Certainly, just let us know as you're moving forward if there's anything else we can do to help facilitate the process. So
who should we reach out to in regards to that? Would it be Eileen? Should you be able to coordinate that? Or
you can honestly, I mean, certainly you can go to Eileen for as the board secretary, but you could just honestly, if you want a technical review committee, Eileen and myself and the board's professionals. So you can just kind of send it up to all of us, and we'll move from there.
And we generally ask that you post like a minimal amount of escrow to cover the professionals' costs for any technical review committee meetings that you have before the formal application. About $1,500, and we can do an escrow agreement.
Okay.
Set that up.
Great. All right. Well, thank you both, and best of luck. And I'm going to move you from panelist back down to participant, unless you can do it yourself here.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Item 6, I'm sorry, that was item 6. Item 7 on our agenda. There had been noticed a public hearing for Captiva Main Street LLC, Block 5, Lots 1 and 2, for preliminary and final site plan and C variances. That is the global ag site area. It's a redevelopment area, and materials have been submitted. We are going to carry this matter to our March 22nd meeting, March 22nd, 2022, without further notice being provided. And let me be very clear, because this moves right into chair items. Our next meeting, COVID permitting, unless something changes between now and then, we will be in person at Borough Hall, with a remote option, hybrid, like we tried that once back in August. Okay, but so the meeting so we are carrying Captiva Main Street LLC to our March 22nd, 2022 meeting, 7 p.m. Borough Hall, 38 Park Avenue, in person. I'm being very explicit and clear 16 times to make sure that that's the notice is proper, because they noticed for the meeting, for a virtual meeting, we are carrying it to an in-person hybrid meeting.
And just to clarify, they actually noticed for both,
Okay.
because we did anticipate that this could be a possibility. So that is covered, as well as your announcement tonight, as well as the listing on the agenda indicating that we are going back. The only thing that I want to clarify is you mentioned COVID permitting. While I'm knocking on everything wood that I can possibly get my hands on, if for some reason there is a problem, I think we should also announce that how that would be handled. I would think a decision would need to be made by no later than Friday, and that would need to be posted on the borough website, on the planning board website, however it is that we do the electronic notifications. If we are planning to go virtual only, and that decision needs to be made, I think we should just announce exactly how that will be advised to everybody.
Okay, so I'm going to say it right now that if there is a additional state of emergency, if the borough OEM and mayor and council determine that it is not safe for us to resume to an in-person meeting, we will do by the end of business on Friday, March, what's Friday's date?
11th.
18th?
11th.
No, 18th?
I thought you meant this Friday.
18th. Yeah, no,
By-
18th.
Right, by the end of the day, Friday, March 18th, there will be a notice placed on the borough's website. We will put a notice on the door of Borough Hall. If we have to go virtual, it will be, what else? What other mechanisms do we usually use?
We
will
had
try-
talked about the social media.
Yeah, but we haven't adopted a social media policy. I'm gonna say we'll put it out on the borough's social media pages if we need to, but I don't know if that's considered an official form of notice. We will.
It's not. It's not. To make it clear, it definitely isn't, but you can certainly put it on whatever it is.
I'm being very optimistic here. I do not see a need for that. We're strongly anticipating we're going to be in person, but if there needs to, if something radically changes that we are not anticipating, that is how we will let folks know. And we will certainly be in communication with not only Captiva as an applicant with a public hearing, but we will do everything in our power to make sure the public knows that we've moved back to a virtual only meeting format. We are anticipating that our meeting starting on the 22nd going forward will be in person at Borough Hall with the Zoom option. But let me be clear, because we ran into this the one time we did this back in August, was that if the internet connection goes out, if there's a technical failure, the meeting is going to proceed in person at Borough Hall, assuming we have quorum and and we are otherwise statutorily able to conduct business. The meeting will proceed. So the members of the board should plan on being in person at Borough Hall unless you have a very specific reason, like you're sick and you need to isolate, or you've had an exposure or something like that. The remote option is there, right? But as in, phoning in has been an option for years under statute. We're not really changing that. But the expectation is that everyone is at Borough Hall. And if an applicant is, we want the applicants to appear in person at Borough Hall. If they want to call a witness, again, it's at their risk if the technology fails to bring in a witness who's remote only. We're going to do everything we can to make sure it doesn't crap out. But if it does, one of you is very clear that we will be proceeding with an in-person meeting. Mayor, I could see that you're.
Yeah, so we think we solved the problem that was causing the internet to go away at a certain time. So they've been in there working, they've replaced some equipment, they've changed, most importantly, some passwords.
Even better.
So other meetings taking place within the building can't use the same pipe. So
fair enough. All right.
Hopefully that'll fix it.
Good. Karen, I'm sorry, you had your hand up. I missed that. I apologize.
Oh, no, it's okay. It wasn't relevant to that specific thing. Well, it is relevant. I often you ask for quorum purposes, people's availability. I just wanted to let you know I'm not available for the next meeting. That's all. Either way. So I just wanted to put that there.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
right.
And if anyone else is not available, let us know. And again, because Captiva will be likely more than one meeting, given the complexity of the application, Karen and anyone else who needs to miss certainly should watch the record, listen to, watch, and catch up, and then sign the affidavit. Hannah, is that why your hand is up?
Yeah, we're getting a little close to my date at that point. So it's a heads up, I should be good, but I'll keep you posted, but just as a quorum heads up kind of thing for me as well, just in case. That's it.
And a legitimate.
I could go. I may maybe want to do virtual, but I don't know. So we'll wait till then. But I'll let you know.
And thank you. And raises the very real. A new mom with a baby at home can certainly participate virtually. Like that. That's why.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
That's why we want the hybrid option for board members who are, able to do that, right? But I'm looking forward to us being back in person. So thank you for.
Yeah. No. Thank you.
hopefully we'll have good news to announce at a future meeting. All right, so that's the big chair item that I've got. We talked before about HPC needing 15 minutes possibly at the next meeting for that. I do want to make everyone aware that in addition to Borough Council authorizing funds for the master plan work, the borough did receive a grant, economic development grant from Clarendon County at their last meeting, $20,000 in support of our master plan work. And I want to thank the county commissioners for that. We already had a kickoff meeting, Beth, myself, Susan, Todd, and Hannah, and we're going with that. And I'm very excited that we're moving forward with that work. That's what I've got on my list of chair items. Does anybody have anything else?
I just wanted to piggyback on the master plan. Beth, did you get my email with the stakeholders list?
I did get it. I haven't had a chance to digest it yet, but
No,
I
that's
saw it
fine.
come in later today. Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
very much. And for those of you,
Unfortunately, that's not the complete list. That's only about 50 of the 75 people we interviewed. I can't find the final list that we had, but what I did have was the majority of the people that we interviewed. I just didn't have like the schedule and when we did. There was
That's
a lot
okay.
of people that were added, and I can think of who they were, but I wanted to make sure you got it.
oh, thank you. And
Good.
for those of you that are on that committee and had homework, just consider this a reminder.
Mm.
All right. I think that's it under chair items. Item 9 is audit the bills. Those have been previously circulated by email. Can I get a motion on the bills?
So move Cook.
Second, Budney.
Any discussion or questions? All right, Eileen, call the roll, please.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Budney,
Yes.
Mayor Driver,
Yes.
Ms. Giles McCormick,
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Abstain.
Mr. Dashna,
Yes.
Mrs. Engelhardt,
Yes.
Ms. Giffen,
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman.
Yes.
Cats walking across screen, something else we will not have in Borough Hall when we get back. All right, professional reports. Kara, do you
I'm
have any?
sorry, Jeff, I should announce that we put in a Borough Hall cat.
All right, cool.
We actually didn't, but we could.
You know what? Therapy animals, I think, may make meetings go better. You know, if anyone's got a Labradoodle they want to donate to the cause. No, I'm kidding.
I can bring my
I
dog.
think that's a great idea.
All right. Kara, professional report. Do you have anything?
I don't.
All right, Bob, do you have anything?
No.
Beth, other than doing our homework, anything else?
No, that's all.
All right, Jay, do you have anything? Take that as a no. Kara, do we need to go into executive session for any purpose?
We do not.
Well, then, our business being conducted, we will adjourn and our next meeting is in person at Borough Hall on March 22nd. Actually, in all seriousness, Caitlin or Mayor Driver, is Borough Hall imposing a mask policy for meetings? What has there been a discussion on that?
Trying to remember what the discussion was. I think after the 7th, which was yesterday, I think that we were going to make it optional. So I do not believe that we will have a mask requirement. I will double check. I will loop back with Corporal McNally and ask. But I think that the plan was that everything basically we're back to normal.
All right. Obviously, members of the board and professionals and applicants for that matter, if you choose to mask up, please feel free to do so. That's entirely one's personal discretion at that point, if that's the case.
Yeah, I also want to put out that if somebody has a health issue, and we're dealing with this with, I don't want to get into too many details, but I'm dealing with it elsewhere. And if somebody has a health issue that makes them most comfortable doing it at home, that they should reach out directly to you, Jeff, so that you can make the decision whether or not to grant that exemption.
Sounds good. All right. All right, good enough. Anything else?
Folks, I should add one more thing. Just one thing I forgot in my my report, if you don't mind. There's been interest expressed by a property owner, and they've asked for sort of a technical review committee for Bob and I, and maybe Jay. I'm sorry, I forget if Jay was invited. The address is on Mine Street. Let me just pull it as I'm trying to catch up. It's 37 Mine Street, block 34, lot 7. So it seems like that property owner has an interest in doing some redevelopment of their site. I think small R redevelopment as opposed to area in need of redevelopment, at least as what I know now. So just want to give folks a heads up that may be another property that wants to move forward with some change.
Is that the old Burkett Supply or is
No,
The appliance.
Yeah.
Appliance Place? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
is that 37?
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
the old Burkett's, the old Burkett's.
Burkett's. Okay, okay.
Yep.
Very good.
And I will say, I forgot to mention, and we can cover this next meeting. We did get notice that Raritan Township is looking to amend its ordinance about chickens. And because it deals with land use, we got notified. I don't think we need to take any action on a chicken ordinance, but everyone should have seen that in their boxes. So I forgot to mention the chickens. We encourage chickens in Flemington Borough. We have no problems with chickens in Flemington. So about time that they caught up to us. All right. With that, I think we're ready to adjourn. Yes.
I just
All right.
like that the professor got assigned homework.
Professor didn't do his homework. Professor's playing catch up all week here. So, all right. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
All right. Any opposition? Night all. I will see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, good night.
Hi, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.